Kia ora, good afternoon. I've been busy planning some sightseeing stuff with my sister, and I can't stop thinking about that dream I had about Emmanuel Macron. And I'm wondering, is he sick, or is he dying or something? Has he got cancer or something like that? Because I'm starting to think, with the shampoo I was given to wash his body, my shampoo is made in the exact same way as my honey of Isis oil. And you know, my honey of Isis oil is my funerary oil that I was working on nearly 5 years ago. I was working on it before all hell broke loose in my life. My ex-husband stole my oils and then sold them on his eBay at his store Freya's Cauldron to sell as pagan ritual oils, which is a complete offence to my ancestors, because my oils are for cleansing your soul and preparing you for the afterlife. Even if you don't die for 50 years, it's a purification process that he stole and took and turned into black magic, oil for black magic. If you want this to happen, use this oil. You know, he completely misunderstood why I'd made them elemental oils, and then made stuff up about those oils that he has no right or permission to do. He thought he could just chuck some grapeseed oil and all of that together and throw a few things into some jars and sell them to help people perform black magic occult rituals, because he'd seen me make my oils. But I'm Egyptian. I have Persian and North African blood coursing through my veins. I'm also indigenous. I'm an indigenous shaman, medicine woman, whatever you want to call it. I know what I'm doing. I'm ordained, as well as the fact that I'm an ordained reverend. So everything that I make, everything that I make is blessed, so it's holy. So my water is holy water. My oils are anointment oils, because I'm a reverend. I'm an ordained reverend. And I know what I'm doing. And so, you know, he stole them to use them for black magic, to sell as black magic, along with ceremonial daggers and stuff on his channel. So what he did was highly offensive in the eyes of even Odin and God and Satan and all the rest of them, because it's like, who is this intruder? You're having a laugh. Like, are you really? Because he put some Thor jewelry on and runs around wearing Church of Leviathan t-shirts, he thinks that he's got the right to dabble in this sort of thing to make a few bucks. You know, so it's all coming back on him, because I keep saying over and over and over and over again, just because you like witchcraft, just because you like devil worship, just because the occult and pagans and druids and that are a bit cool and a bit this and a bit spooky and a bit ooh, doesn't mean that you're allowed to just help yourself to those practices, because these are ancient practices, and even the druids and the pagans didn't know what they were doing. They took their Wiccan practices from the Wick culture. And as I keep saying, the word witch means wise, and the word Wiccan comes from witch, but the word witch comes from wick, which is the Old English word for ancient wisdom, meaning indigenous wisdom, and that's what Chris stole. Now, the thing is, I've been thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. You know, I'm French, right? My Fraser of Lovett ancestors migrated to Scotland from France. The name Fraser in French means wild strawberry. So I'm French, and that's why I have that connection to Joan of Arc and all that. I put the video up where I was calling her in my bedroom, and I've said time and time and time again, as a time jumper, I understand how all of this works. And when she was seen talking to the light, and talking to the angels and that through the light of God and all of that, one of those instances where she was seen talking to nothing but light would have been her talking to me in my bedroom in that video. And I was talking back to her, and she was letting France know that she was there to protect them and blah, blah, blah. So Emmanuel Macron is French. So was I called to do a cleansing ritual on him because he's sick or dying? Is he terminally ill, or is he sick that with something that could take his life, and has been offered the chance to seek salvation before death or something? Because the thing is, when I was trying to help King Charles and Vladimir Putin, the both of them had cancer. And I was saying to them, I'm here to help you, because I make no bones of the fact that I'm a death angel. I've never hidden the fact that I'm a death angel. My sister Erin is a death angel too, but she's there for people who are suffer from dementia. The hospice for the George Callaghan Veterans Trust that I'm going to build in New York, where they can come for palliative care when they're in their final days. That's the business I'm building for my sister. That's because she's a death angel. And she's currently with people who suffer from dementia, but in the hospice that I built for her in the Tangi Whare, or the Weeping House, that I'm going to build for her in New York, will be for veterans, for whatever they're dying from. And, we've talked extensively about the grounds and what it's going to look like, and like how there'll be a communal kitchen and living room. My vision board on my Instagram that I had up, that they took down because they said it was fraudulent, making excuses to take my innocent little vision board down, because apparently a vision board is against community guidelines. I'm just looking for excuses to take me down. But I put stuff up there, and it's on my X and that as well, because I was discussing with my sister the palliative care home. I call it the Tangi Whare. She's probably not going to call it the Tangi Whare, but it just means the weeping house, or the grieving house, the mourning house. Because her and I work with death. We work with the dying, but she literally works with them, like in the run up to them dying because they're terminally ill. I teach people about the afterlife so that they can understand what the afterlife is before they die, so that they're given the opportunity to do right in their life before their time comes, whether they're dying or not. But that I'm the one that gets called when people are wanting to end their life at their own hand. I saved 2 people from doing that when I was locked up. One girl, I'm not going to mention names, wrapped a phone cord around her neck. Another girl was chopping herself up to the point where she needed hospital treatment. Another one was starving herself to death, and I came in. And, and then the one who had grown up in these hospitals from chopping herself up ended up being able to leave and get her own flat and stuff for the first time in her life. I have stopped thousands of people taking their own lives through my blog. I stopped 2 murder-suicides. two people planning murder suicides and potential mass murderer, which my video for that is up on my channel, because I was talking about my experience with him. Because when I went through my ascension and I explained about ascension psychosis and that, he contacted me and he said, "You've just saved me." And I had a kill list of people that I was getting ready to, because I thought I was losing my mind. I didn't realise what I was going through was a thing. And, because when you go through an ascension, you're basically taken to hell. And the choices that you make decide whether you stay down there or you get to leave. And he was on the brink of being forced to stay down there because he had gotten to the point where he had killed his kid's pet gerbil, I think it was, squashed it in his hand. It was his gerbil or his mouse, pet mouse or pet gerbil or something. He squashed it in his hand. So he was tipping to go to the darkest place. Whereas I shut myself off, turned off all the noise and just sat in the quiet to figure out what was happening to me. Later on, obviously, I realised it was a demagnetization process, which is scary if you don't understand what's happening. But I was the perfect person to be put through it because I have the mind that needs to figure it all out so that I can help other people from suffering the same fate. Because when you go through those sort of things and you don't understand what's happening to you, people around you are going to have you locked up and put in a straitjacket, and those doctors will be only too happy to force you to take medications, which is exactly what they did to me. Because my ex-husband lied and said that I was running around the house with a knife in front of my boys threatening to take my own life, which was bullshit. And I had witnesses and it was all on video. He just made it up because I'd figured out what he'd done. I'd figured out he'd stolen my books. I'd figured out he'd stolen from me. And he was getting ready to start his own bakery, Psycho Bakes Wakefield and all of that. And because I was figuring it out, he knew I could sue him for theft of intellectual property and all of that. And so he needed to get rid of me because I was on the brink of getting my lawsuit against Rocio and Rhea and all that started. And then I would have been leaving, which means he would have had to pay for child support, which he couldn't afford because he'd invested all his money into another family and was planning on ending my life so that he could basically take over my life as an occult, well, not an occult physicist because he wouldn't know anything about occult physics if it bit him in his hairy ass, but as an occult practitioner. Because San and his girlfriend Katie and that, they were all into that sort of thing. Pentagrams and I know that from what I was told about Katie's Instagram and that it was all, she had black magic and witchcraft stuff up on her Instagram. And I had said to him, if you dabble in that stuff, it's going to come back on you. He had ear infection. I put some holy water in his ear and it literally burnt him. He nearly punched me because it burnt him so bad. And that's when I knew I was in trouble. And that's when I found that email I sent to myself when I was scared for my life. Because I knew, even though I don't remember doing it, I clearly knew I was in trouble. He was getting books about the occult that had false information in it. And when he showed it to me and I said to him, this information is wrong, he got really angry with me. He said the book was recommended to him. And when I looked at it, I was like, that's not true though. That's not correct. I was reading and I was saying, look, it says blah, 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 blah. And I was explaining, I was saying, that's not even right. And I said, if you listen to this book, it's going to backfire. Some of those symbols and stuff that he had in that book was all the things that he'd engraved on his talismans and that he was selling on his eBay, Freya's Cauldron. And because I got him a drill, like a special artist drill that you use for engraving like glass and stone and as a Dremel drill, because I used the same drill when I was making my talisman jewelry from the stones and that my boys had gathered at the beach to turn into talismans, my prototypes, and he stole it all from me. And if you look at his Freya's Cauldron and the photos that I took of his Freya's Cauldron, he's used his little Dremel to engrave symbols into bits of glass and, stuff like that, because he was trying to copy me. Just because you're Danish and you have your ancestors have a connection to paganism and Thor, doesn't mean that you're allowed to do these things to make money from it. You have to have permission from your ancestors. You have to go through a purification process because you're given access to people's souls, which is like, it's an honor enough to have access to their spiritual evolution, like, when you're doing readings for them or you're doing palm readings or teacup readings or coffee cup readings or whatever. It's a privilege enough when you get to sit down with someone and guide their life. But when you're gaining access to the actual path that their soul goes down, that decides whether when that person dies they go to heaven or hell, that's a privilege that you cannot take for granted. And it's taken me 53 years to finally be allowed access to be able to, my Mystery Inside Histories, my Mystery Inside History show. It's taken me 53 years to earn the right to make those shows, because I've been around death and dying my entire life. I was born to death. I'm a Scorpio. I was born to death. But I was also born to the occult and rebirth and birth. He rules justice and balance and luxury and communication. That's not his department. He wasn't born into that department. It's not anything he's allowed to have access to. He could be a karmic judge, but he's on the wrong side of the law. He's on the wrong side of the universal law and the wrong side of judicial law. So he's in the reverse. Whereas someone like Vladimir Putin is in the upright. He's a Libra who's in the upright because he is about justice and balance and being fair, which is why he was the one that was trying to deal with this thing with Ukraine legally, using the law, doing everything the right way. But the people that he was up against are criminals. And I'm just wondering, and because, he had cancer and King Charles has cancer, and I'm a death angel, and I'm wondering whether, aside from everything I've done with, the kids that didn't survive the Epstein thing and the murder, the Mysteries Inside Histories investigations that I do to bring a voice to the dead and stuff, I'm wondering whether I was sent to Charles and Putin because of their cancer. Like, they're old men. They've both dealt with cancer. They haven't got long left. They've both been in situations where the karmic scales need to be balanced, and they were being offered the chance for salvation, to save their souls before death takes them. Because I deal with the afterlife. I deal with the consequences of your life after you die, because I'm a karmic judge. and your karma seals your fate in death. And so I'm wondering, is Macron sick? Or has he been diagnosed with a terminal illness? Or is he about to meet his maker? Because why would I be dreaming about him where God's butler handed me my shampoo to wash him down with if it wasn't to purify his body to prepare him for the afterlife? Otherwise, he's been offered the chance to save his soul so that he doesn't go down with the rest of them. Because of the French connection, because I am French. I would love to go to France and see where my Fraser of Lovett ancestors came from. But also, I was just talking to my sister about this in regards to the tour that I'm putting together of the United Kingdom with her and my nephews and that before we head to America. Sir Simon Fraser of Lovett, Lord Lovett, was the last man to be beheaded in the Tower of London. So he was executed for treason. So I have some personal business with the King's family where we need to be working off some karmic debt together. And I've been doing my bit. When you look at what his ancestors did to New Zealand and all of that as well, my ancestors killed some of his people killed some of my people, and it's been happening, from my Indigenous side and my Scottish side. And to a lesser extent, my French side as well. His ancestors would have inevitably been at war with my French ancestors, especially in the war that Joan of Arc was fighting. I would have had ancestors all up in that. Not to mention the fact the Crusades, I would have had my Persian ancestors fighting my British ancestors, as well as like the King's ancestors and all of that. King Robert the Bruce, we're both related to him. So I'm connected to the King on a karmic level in many, 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 many ways. And I've been turning up and doing my bit. I've paid off my karmic debt in regards to the British royal family and to England and all of that, because I have spoken up for the dead on the King's side. The Queen Elizabeth I, the Queen Mother, Princess Diana, Tsar Nicholas, King George V. Like, I've been speaking up because I'm a death angel. So I've done my bit. They put it all out there. They let it be known their position in regards to the Ukraine-Russia thing. They let it be known that the King was walking a fine line and that he was about to lose everything because he wasn't listening, and because he's got cancer and it's incurable. How much time has he got left? And so I've come along, I've been sent to him to say to him, this is what you need to do to fix it if you want to meet your mother in heaven. Because regardless of what conspiracy theory freaks think, she wasn't a child-eating lizard person. It was ridiculous. She didn't do satanic rituals and stuff. She wouldn't be allowed anywhere near the creation frequency if she was half as evil as what people said she was, or think she is, or say she is. I know how this works. Prince Philip, on the other hand, haven't heard hide nor hair. I'm just saying. I'm not saying anything, but I'm making a joke. I haven't heard hide nor hear of him, but I'm making a joke. This is between the Queen and her son, and she had mentioned in codes on X about don't be afraid, and I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, and get your teddy bear, and I'm going to be right here holding your hand when your time comes and stuff like that. So I'm going to assume that King Charles does not have very long left, and he's been offered for the last 2 and a bit years since Starmer got in, since he took over as king, to do the right thing to fix Great Britain and to sack the Labour government and to dissolve Parliament and tear it all down and start again before his time comes, because if he doesn't, William will never be king, and that's exactly where we're headed, because he's not listening. And now Iran's threatening to bomb his kingdom and his bases and all of that because Trump and Labour. Don't think for 1 second that Burnham is any different to Starmer. It's all the same plan. It's just that they needed to bring in a softer approach because Keir Starmer was oil and vinegar. He clashed, so they brought in someone who is going to kill us with kindness, kill the monarchy and kill off Great Britain with a smile. And the king's not listening. But there's nothing more I can do, because I've screamed at him to wake up until I'm hoarse in the throat. And so it means that when his time comes, he's not even going to have his mother and grandmother and that there to meet him on the other side. He'll go to purgatory. He'll have to sit and be put on the naughty step to think about the choices that he made when he was alive. And then he'll have to keep coming back and living lives over and over and over again until he gets it right, which means in his next life he'll probably come back as someone poor, someone who's affected by the Labour government and the dystopian Great Britain. Well, it won't be Great Britain, dystopian England maybe, or Scotland or something. So Putin, on the other hand, his salvation was to be sought in making better choices about who he takes advice from, making better choices about who he does business with, because he trusted the wrong people. He trusted Trump and Musk in that, and now all hell's broken loose because he didn't listen. And you'll notice that when I was told to walk away, remember when I got summoned to that courtroom with Odin, and he said, stand down now, there's nothing more you can do. When I walked away from trying to help Putin and the king, all hell's broken loose in both of their lives. Because you're only offered salvation once. And I tried for years with Putin, and I tried for years with the king. And so this thing with Macron is very interesting, because I know the role that I play, and I've never ever hidden that fact. I go where death follows. I go where death hangs around. I get sent to where death is hanging around. And I'm sent in to save people. I'm sent in to go down into their darkest days, into their dying days, and pull them out. Or I prepare their bodies for the transition, to go into the underworld, to have their soul weighed, to have their heart judged, to be judged. I walk them to the underworld, because I, like being Māori and that, we sit with people when they're dying. We hold their hand and walk them to the afterlife. That's just a part of being Māori when you're dealing with someone who's dying, like my mum and Amber and all of that. We sit with them in their last few weeks, and we do what needs to be done for them to hold their hand, to walk them to the other side, so they know they're not alone. And then we know that their ancestors, their loved ones, and that'll meet them on the other side. Charles isn't going to have that. He's not going to have anyone meet him on the other side. That's sad. But he will be judged. We are all judged. It's only the pure and innocent that aren't judged, and that's children and animals. how many pure and innocent adults are there? Well, I won't be judged because I did the work. I sought salvation. I paid off all my karmic debt so that, you know, when I die, when I'm like 115, I go straight to the other side. I walk right through the door, unless I sin between now and then, which ain't never going to bloody happen, because I'm not going back down to the underworld for nobody. So I'm just thinking with this Macron, because I was washing him and I was patting him down, it's like I was preparing his body. And that's what my honey of Isis oil is. And we'll use my honey of Isis oil at our palliative care home, you know, when they're dying. And I want my honey of Isis oil to be used in funeral homes. You know, anyone who's having a wake where the body's going to be on display, and that you'll be able to use my honey of Isis oil. It's funerary oil, but you can put it on the body, because I had said to Amber when she was about to go into hospice, I said, I've got some oil here that I could be rubbing into your body. And she said, oh, I'd love that. And I said, I just don't die until I get there. I need to get home. Just wait for me. And she held on as long as she could, but I said, I just got to keep praying I get justice so that I can get the money to get out of here, and then I can come and use my oil to, you know, rub into your body and that. I said, I'll give you a nice massage and that, so that, you know, when your time comes, you'll be at peace, you know, like I can cleanse you. And she said, I would absolutely love that, but it never happened. I didn't get justice in time. And she was asking for me in her last couple of days before she finally crossed over, and I will never forgive Chris for that. I said to God, can I please hate him? I know I'm not allowed to hate. I know that you say that when you hate when we hate someone, we're to give that hate to you, and you'll take that hate for us, and that, you know, we're to forgive them and all of that. I said, but I can never forgive Chris for what he's done. And he said, this one time, you can this one time. So I'm an occult physicist, and I prepare people for how to live their best life so they don't live a bad one in the afterlife, so that they don't die with regrets. And King Charles and Vladimir Putin were offered the chance to seek salvation. And apparently now it seems so is Emmanuel Macron. And I think that there is a slight possibility that my ancestor, Mary Callahan, was she Jane? Jane Mary Callahan, but they called her Mary or something. When she was a translator in Moscow, I think there's a slight chance that she may have known Putin's father or grandfather. And yeah, so this Macron thing, very interesting. And because I said that they were made to sit on that chair because God needed to have a word with them. And because he said, I said, why are you sitting so far away from me? And he said, because we're scared of you. And I said, you don't need to be scared of me, you need to be scared of God. That's the exact thing that somebody would say if they were talking to death. We're scared of death. We're scared to death. We're scared. And I said, you don't need to be scared of me. You need to be scared of God. Because if I'm just the death angel, then God's the one that decides what happens to you in death and after death. And that's what I'm thinking that conversation was. So is he being offered the chance to save himself by walking away from the EU and Germany and this whole thing? Because I can think someone is as bad and evil as what I think they are, but I'm not the one who decides their fate, because I'm not God. And if God is saying you need to go to him and offer him the chance to seek salvation and to have a purification ritual done, to be purified, then I've got to do it, because he's God and I work for him and I'm his servant and I do as I'm told, because I'm a death angel. I go where death walks. So it's food for thought, eh? So is he sick? And because remember he said we never liked him. In regards to Keir Starmer, we never liked him. He was a people pleaser. And he didn't care about the cost, meaning the cost to human life. He didn't care who got hurt, as long as he got what he wanted in order to look good in front of the people he was trying to impress. And that's what he said in the dream. That's what Emmanuel said in the dream. But he didn't care at what cost, as in what cost to human life. So, yeah. All the deaths I've investigated, the unsolved mysteries, all the people I've saved, thousands of people. I've saved people from drowning. I saved my best friend at school, Nicola Milne, from drowning. She went down on the slide into the lake at the school camp and broke her wrist as she was going down the slide, and she landed in the middle of the lake and couldn't swim because she'd broken her wrist, and I swam out and saved her. I saved my nieces and nephews from being taken out in a riptide. Those African boys that were stabbed at the back of my ex's house. The one where I was holding the man's guts in with my foot to try and stop the other one whose ankle had been chopped off from crawling away. I'm always where death is. Car accidents, heart attacks, brain aneurysms, by their own hand. So, interesting about Macron. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. I had to put it out there because I can't stop thinking about it. So I wonder if he had a dream or something. Or he's been thinking about it and I picked up on it in my dream, which is why when he was sitting in the chair and I was telling him about the dream that I'd had about washing him. Anyway, so my oils and all of that will be sold. Hopefully I can get them to funeral parlours and hospices, anywhere where there's palliative care. And my spray as well, because you can use my rehua spray in the beds and in the rooms and that when they're dying and after they've crossed over, so that nothing residual is left. There's no residual energy. The nurses and doctors and that can spray themselves, because that's what my sister does. She uses my spray. And she loses people like every week almost. because she's a nurse in a palliative care home for dementia patients. She's got all these certificates and everything. And it's her dream to own a care home, for palliative care. And I said that Chris and his cult and Musk and that will pay for her to have one. I'll fund it. We know what it's going to look like and everything. And then I'll just hand you the deeds and walk away. Well, I mean, not walk away forever, but you know what I mean. It'll be hers to run. I said, I'll pay for everything. She can design it how she wants. I said, it's just the only stipulation is that it has to be part of the George Callaghan Veterans Trust. And our dad was her best friend. So she didn't say no. And then we'll have our cemetery. And they can end up in our Halloween events and our horror movies and stuff. So, yeah, interesting about Macron. So we'll just see what happens, eh? But yeah, my honey of isosaurs, I'll put all the links to what I had in the description box. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō.